Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Interop, and welcome to the afternoon session, which is called Video as the New Voice. And what we're going to talk to you today a little bit about is one of the key elements of making video the new voice. Probably if you're here, that's an idea you've heard expressed before, that video should be as common and as easy to use and as completely transparent as picking up the telephone and making a call to anyone anywhere in the world is today. Video isn't there yet, but there's a lot of people working on trying to make it a little closer to that objective. And this session is sponsored by and led by one of the groups that's been most effective at that, and that's the Open Visual Communications Consortium, or OVCC. To get us started, my name's Eric Krapf. I chair the collaboration track here at Interop, so all of the content related to video and to the cloud, which is a big part of OVCC's work, is in that collaboration track. And we encourage you to stop by. We've got OVCC represented on a cloud panel tomorrow morning, looking at how to use the cloud to provision communication service. And we also have two sessions looking at video from different angles, one from the sort of vendor infrastructure angle and one from the angle of checking your own enterprise infrastructure to make sure that it can handle video. And obviously these are all important components of video. But what we're going to focus on with our discussion from our representatives from OVCC today is the work that they're doing to try and make video more interoperable and therefore more ubiquitous. I'm going to put up here for you to see as we do the session a slide that gives you the logos of the members of OVCC, and what's encouraging about that is you see almost all the significant names in this marketplace, and as everybody knows, it's pretty hard to establish a standard or to get an interoperable world when you don't have participation from all the major players. So it's a really important first step that just about every vendor of consequence is on this list. And the gentlemen who are with me on the podium are going to help explain what they're all trying to do exactly. So let me introduce from in my immediate right, Clive Sawkins from BCS Global Networks, Andrew McFadden from Orange Business Services, and Chris Kemmerer from Verizon. And what we want to do is start out a little bit just explaining who OVCC is beyond just the names you see up there, and what they're actually trying to do, and then we'll talk about some of the technical and industry issues that they're specifically working on solving, and hopefully how you can help them further that mission and get the benefits that they're trying to achieve with these. So I want to start out with Andrew, who is the president of OVCC, and ask you to just tell us a little bit, how long has OVCC been around? When did it start? What's its role?
Yeah, thanks very much, Eric, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, so my name's Andrew McFadden, and I'm actually head of global marketing at Orange Business Services, which is the enterprise division of the France Telecom Group. And within Orange, one of the things that we've been focused on over a number of years is providing video telepresence solution for enterprise customers. And a common theme from those customers is we want to be able to use the video, the investment that we've made in video within our enterprise, to have video meetings with customers, with suppliers, with partners, outside of our enterprise. And this was something that within Orange we started working on several years ago, and the first service that we introduced was called Telepresence Community, which allowed one Orange customer to have a video meeting with another Orange customer. And that was a good step forward. But the customers were all telling us, well, that's great, but actually, my partner happens to be a customer of Verizon. And he doesn't actually have Cisco endpoints, he has Polycom endpoints, so we want to have a meeting with them. So we started off, and the other service providers did the same, we started off having bilateral discussions. So in the typical fashion, we started talking to AT&T, we had a separate discussion with Verizon, a discussion with BT, and gradually we put in place a limited number of bilateral connections. It took a long time, and every time we were having those discussions, effectively we were replicating the same thing. And it was taking us a long time to make progress. So a number of service providers and vendors got together about 2 years ago and sort of shared their vision that we all wanted to make video as ubiquitous as the phone and as easy to use as the phone, and discuss really what the critical enablers for that would be. And out of that was born OVCC. And in fact, the first formal meeting of the OVCC, the first board meeting, took place 12 months ago on the 27th of September here in New York. So it's our first anniversary. And I think in that first year we have made significant progress, and we'll talk about that during the session today. But I think really what is very encouraging, we started off with 11 members 12 months ago. And as you can see here, we've now, although it doesn't say the number on here, we now have 32 members. And I think that shows two things, really. One is, the quality of the members. You can see that there are the major global players are all members of OVCC, which to me tells me two things. One is that, we all share a common vision and a willingness to make this happen, because at the end of the day, we're competitors. And one of the challenges that I accepted when I accepted to be the president of OVCC, I was a bit concerned that it was going to be a constant bun fight amongst all the members trying to position themselves. Frankly speaking, the reason we've made really good progress in the first year is the strong cooperation and common vision shared between all of the members. So I think, as we'll talk about during this session, we're about to launch the first wave of OVCC compliant services. And I think it's testament to the fact that we see the need in the marketplace, but also the collaboration between the partners that's making this happen. So,
yeah. I'd like to ask Clive and Chris maybe to weigh in on why your company's considered it important to be part of OVCC, and what specifically you feel like the progress you're making by being part of OVCC, how that'll be represented.
Sure. So I think, and we'll touch on this, I think, throughout the next hour or so. But I think one of the things that, we recognize in the industry, especially when you think of things like consumerization of IT, is, the desire to communicate visually. And when you look at how increasingly we're seeing people use things like Skype and that to communicate in their personal lives, they're going to expect that same level or that same type of interaction when they come into the workplace. The same simplicity and the same, I can connect to anyone. Most people don't recognize the fact that even on a service like that, you can only really talk to somebody that has that same service. So when you start to get into the complexities of, when you come into the workplace, you really can't talk to the other person because they don't have the same feature or functionality. They're not on the same network as you. And that's not going to suffice moving forward. So when we look at, why we are part of OVCC, it's to break down that barrier from a utilization perspective. It's to, make video use pervasive, to allow people to connect anytime, anywhere, from any device in the same way they would a phone.
And I think Andrew and Chris have articulated the value proposition very well, but let me say why BCS Global decided to come to the party. Every other form of communication in this world works ubiquitously apart from video. And end users and organizations are very frustrated in the way that it takes so much complexity to make these technologies seamlessly come together as one. And more importantly, the users are very frustrated. If you look around in the marketplace today, there's a younger generation that have all these tools everywhere, wherever they go, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in their home lives. And what we're being asked to do is to deliver these types of solutions that allow visual collaboration to happen everywhere. Any network, any endpoint, anytime, any place. And the reason I joined is to kind of reinforce Andrew's comment that he made. We as BCS have always had that vision. As a much smaller organization than many of the other members, we need to partner with organizations to make solutions work for our customers. And that means coming together on many levels, from a commercial level and from a technical level. And I've been very pleasantly surprised over the last year how the large service providers and the large technology vendors have come together, left the egos at the doors to make this solution work for the end users and for business. Because without that, we will not succeed. So I've been very, very impressed in how we've managed to work a number of work streams, work out how we can charge for this, how we can have interlateral agreements, but also how the technology can come together as one, which will, at the end of the day, drive the business for all of us.
Can you maybe expand on what the sort of work product of the OVCC is? Is this like the IETF was coming up with standards? Is it more like the Wi-Fi Alliance with kind of pre-standard agreements? Or what comes out of this that they need to adopt.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I'll take that one. Yeah, so, I mean, the purpose, as I say, of the OVCC is not a standards body, is the first thing to say. So we're not creating and approving technical standards for video services. What we recognised when we first came together were that the things that were missing and that are important are things like the operational processes and procedures between service providers. You know, clearly, if you've got a customer who's got a multi-point meeting in place and there's a problem with that meeting, you need to get it fixed quickly. Yeah? And when you're in a single supplier, single vendor, single service provider environment, that's okay. If you've got a number of different service providers or customers of different service providers participating in that same meeting, you have to have operational processes and procedures in place amongst the service providers to allow you to fix that problem quickly. Similarly, in terms of things like reservations, so if you want to schedule a meeting, you need to have a process between the service providers that allows you to schedule that meeting. And it's these kind of things that, the third area is the commercial model. You need to have a commercial model in place, which makes sure that people make money out of the service at the end of the day, but also continue to invest in the infrastructure. And it's those areas really that the OVCC is focused on. So it's not focusing on the technical standards, but it's developing and sharing and creating common operational technical processes and procedures and a commercial model amongst the members.
And it's you gentlemen all represent service providers, and the service providers took the initiative here. But now we see, that there are the Ciscos and Polycoms and Huawei's up there as the equipment vendors. I wonder, what is the role of the equipment suppliers in OVCC?
Sure. I can give it a shot, not coming from an equipment provider, but sure. I'll speak on behalf of them. Certainly we buy enough from them. So I think a couple things. One of the challenges with video technology is not everybody speaks the same language. So, it's about connecting people, and those people have an endpoint, and whether that's a big, immersive room, HD type scenario, or whether that's, and I saw a bunch of iPhones and that floating around, or whether it's an iPhone. The role from an equipment manufacturer perspective is to look at how to adhere to standards such that it will enable, once the carriers are connected, will enable that seamless communication between any endpoint. So, from my perspective, I view that as probably their most significant role in this.
Do you, this may be overstating it, but obviously enterprises know, all too well that video endpoints traditionally haven't interoperated just endpoint to endpoint. So even if you have if you have your own private network, if you have Cisco here and Polycom here, you're going to have problems. Are you, because you are who you are, your companies are who they are, is it part of the OVCC's mission to, let's say, persuade the equipment vendors to be more interoperable on the ends?
Perhaps I can take that one. Eric, I don't think we have to persuade them. They've come to the party quite willingly to work out how we can make this interoperability work. And I think there's more than one level of interoperability. There's always been the technical spaghetti and the wires to make these boxes communicate to the network, get through the firewalls and deliver all that. But in the new world, it's far more than that. They need to talk together seamlessly to deliver an experience. And absolutely the traditional vendors and the new vendors are coming to the party to understand what the user requirements are and evolve their products in line with some of the questions that are coming out. If we're going to make this a success, we have to make it so simple for the users, whichever device, whichever network, whichever location. And that does mean that the service providers, the network operators, and the technology vendors all have to come to the party willingly, and they absolutely have.
Is from your perspective, is this with the sort of the set of processes that you're describing that OVCC is hoping to come out with? Will that then be the basis for sort of peering arrangements among the different providers? The idea is that you'll build on top of these procedural standards?
Yeah, so maybe to explain in practice what we're doing and how we're moving forward. So we're close to actually releasing what we will call Wave 1 of services. So there are 4 network service providers that have interconnected their MPLS networks. And there are 7 managed service providers who are connecting to those 4 network service providers. Okay, so and in principle, then a customer, for example, from Orange, who's using a Cisco endpoint, will be able to have a meeting, a scheduled meeting with a customer from BCS Global, for example. Now, clearly what we're doing is, because of the fact that, as we've said already, not all vendor terminals interoperate with each other, we're testing end-to-end the quality of service and the quality of the user experience between different pairs of device. And we're therefore sort of certifying, so OVC certified, we're certifying these endpoints that they work across the service. So, when we launch the first wave of services in Q4, that's what we'll be offering to our customers. And, to try and make it clear, the service itself is not an OVCC service, it's the service of the service providers. So in the case of Orange Business Services, we will sell our own video service to our own customer. Similarly, BCS will sell their service to their customer. But it's using this OVCC compliant service, so with all of the, the common operating procedures, the common commercial model between the partners, etc.
Mm-hmm. Is it fair to compare that kind of to the arrangement that cellular mobile carriers have now?
Yeah, it's not too dissimilar. There's just some different nuances to handoffs and stuff like that.
Sure,
but it is basically those agreement and those adherence to. As a mobile carrier, we hand off the same way, to different mobile providers. In that same scenario, today, Andrew mentioned, when we look at the bilateral agreements, we're sort of we're recreating the wheel each time. Where we won't be doing that anymore. Everybody will adhere to the same thing. The handoffs will be the same. The connectivity will be the same. The operational processes will be the same.
Mm-hmm. What are as you've gone through your first year of work with the OVCC, what are some of the challenges or the biggest obstacles to getting this kind of agreement and getting it accepted by major parties?
Yeah, I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, you only have to look at the logos to see that there's fierce competition amongst a lot of the members. Creating a common vision and a common sort of mindset really was the first challenge. Having said that happened very quickly. Everybody came to the table and said, look, this is what we want to do. We've all got customers who are demanding to have this kind of ubiquitous service. So, it's in everybody's interest to make it work. Having said that, and the structure of OVCC, we set up a legal organisation. So the OVCC itself is a not-for-profit organisation. What we saw looking at other similar bodies was that in order to move things forward and to make good progress, we put in place a project management office. And that project management office is really tracking all of the activities within the OVCC to make sure we deliver and we achieve a momentum. And I think that was very important because, again, what tends to happen, when you look down inside the structure, we've got a technical committee, we've got an operations committee, we've got a marketing committee. And although everybody is working against the same vision and the same sort of set of parameters, you need to orchestrate that. And as I say, having this project management office in the middle allows us to make sure that we maintain a momentum. And I think, that's helped us to solve some of the challenges that we've found along the way.
I can add a little bit to that. I think, looking at it from our perspective and where we sit as service providers, one of the challenges we had was how do we articulate the value prop of this to our customers? I think when you're an engineer or you're a person that uses video every day within an enterprise, you get it. You get the benefit of a ubiquitous access and being able to talk to anybody. But, as you move throughout an organization, you move up to a CEO, it's not necessarily inherent to them the value of this type of capability. And you can go back and you can say, hey, 8 years ago, could you communicate the value of a tablet? You'd be like, well, I think it's, a little better than a laptop, but I'm probably not going to be able to be as productive on it. Now you can't live without it. The same scenario is because it's not there today, it's not like making a phone call. People have a hard time putting it in context and relating to the benefit of it. I think as we proceed through wave one and future iterations of that, where it truly becomes a reality, you will see 3, 4, 5 years from now where it's just a foregone conclusion that when I see somebody's availability and it says they can communicate to them, and I don't know where they are, I don't know what network they're sitting on. And I think once people have that, they won't be able to live without it.
And let me pick up on that, Chris. And you talk about when I have the video presence and when I can do this, who are, what are people going to be able to do? Does that, in enterprise, I think it's, the video systems today, people are acquainted with them enough and they're using them in certain ways that their enterprise has decided make sense. So you deploy a Polycom system or a Cisco, or you had a Tandberg or something, and that did a video application that you saw benefit in. Are we talking about a sort of ubiquitous, peering and network accessibility where what the enterprise is looking at in that 3-4 years down the road is any one of my retail customers can sit down at their computer and, video call my call center? It's a B2C kind of a thing instead of just kind of a B2B.
I actually think B2C is one of the most compelling use cases for video, and whether it's hospitality or whether it's healthcare or whether it's retail, I think we're seeing a lot of companies looking at how they connect with their customers differently. How do they get away from mailers? And they're looking at, it's starting with social media and moving more and more to that type of interaction with their customer. So you'll be able to, potentially see a time when you'll be on, XYZ company's Facebook page and have an opportunity to perhaps chat with somebody via video from that page. Yeah.
I was just going to add to that a little bit. I think, Eric, you asked two questions. I'd like to go back to the first one for a second about our challenges in the first year, and that brings me on to the second piece. So when you have a chart like this with such great logos on, you tend to create an environment in a room with a huge amount of intellectual capital for an event to happen where probably nothing could happen because you've got so much intellectual capital. And I think what we've managed to do in the first year is very much put the stake in the ground on the first set of deliverables that allows us to help, through all the partners and all the members, deliver a service, which is very important because as part of that service you have user value. And if we get user value in the enterprises and with the individuals, then the use of video will be absolutely everywhere over a period of time, and it's clearly not today. So we have a roadmap and we're working through wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and of course with many of the big members, the service providers, it takes time to do some of those changes to roll out the capability. So we know some of this isn't like delivering it tomorrow morning, but actually some of it is. We've actually moved very quickly as a team because of the faith of everyone that's come to the party. So I think we have achieved a lot in our first year, and we're just about there to launch the first set of services. But we're also a set of visionary people that are looking at tomorrow at the same time, because if you think back a few years, when you first put that mobile phone in your pocket, never did you work out who you were calling on which device by which manufacturer. So in the future, why would video be any different? Why would you not just use the device you've got, and why would you worry whether you're calling from your tablet, your PC, to a telepresence room? Surely there's enough intelligence in the networks and within the applications to work all that out. And that's really where we're going. And when I start to think about some of the things as a team we're talking about, real-time presence, device-enabled, proximity-type applications with video being linked into real applications, then I believe as a team we'll deliver some real value for you as individuals and for businesses.
How should those in the audience who are responsible in one way or another for different parts of enterprise networks, how as OVCC succeeds and as you get some critical mass, how is that going to change how they should think about deploying video for their customers? In other words, are they going to be thinking less about I need to run this whole system myself and we can just tie to a public network, or how will this change their approach to video?
I'll take the first stab at it. I would say a couple things. One of the interesting things that we've started to see around video is, up till now, video has been a destination. As an enterprise, if you want to invoke video or participate in video, you're going to go somewhere to do that. Unless you have a desktop client, you can do it behind your desk. You're going to go to a room in a building and participate in video. I think one of the challenges that enterprises will have, or one of the things they need to consider as this continues to evolve, is how they deal with that functionality being delivered to every employee, no matter where they're at, specifically the mobile employee. We're seeing a huge increase in companies looking to enable video on smartphones and more specifically on tablets. It's a better use case, which means as an enterprise, it brings in a lot of additional complexity. It brings in security. It brings in issues around BYOD, what applications leveraging the video on the device. What are my issues around data consumption? Does it change my entire cost model for a mobile user? So I think those are some of the things just internally that I think companies, as they look at the return on investment. So if I'm going to invest in video and I'm going to get a return on that interaction, if you will, what are the things I need to deal with in order to recognize that benefit? And so I think that the first thing that I think companies need to deal with, before they even start looking at federation and all the other issues with regards to connecting to other companies, per se, is just dealing with the proliferation within their own enterprises.
Yeah, I think to add to that, although, and then it's slightly disagreeing, I mean, I think, again, certainly, what we're doing through the OVCC is we are enabling that intercompany meeting experience. And again, for those enterprises that have already existed in room-based systems, particularly, assuming that your service provider is a member of OVCC and is going to offer an OVCC compliant service, you'll be able to ask that service provider to enable it for you, which means that you're going to be able to use your room-based systems to have meetings with, customers, suppliers, etc., whether they're on AT&T's network, BT's network, Orange's network, so anybody else that is part of the OVCC family. And I think that's very powerful because, again, it will allow you as enterprise customers to increase the return on investment that you've already made in that technology. And I think, again, what we're seeing is that the growth of video within the enterprise, because of all the different reasons that we all know very well, so economic reasons, green reasons, etc. People are using video more. And I think to be able to use it with partners, suppliers, and people outside of your own enterprise will really increase the amount of utilization of the investment that you've already made in video technology.
You mentioned, Chris, mobile providers. Is OVCC seeking to add the membership of the your Verizon's mobility division and AT&T's and the other T-Mobile and whoever they're buying this week?
Sure. So from a Verizon perspective, me personally, I do have responsibility for sort of our mobile UC strategy. So when we look at this, partnership in this consortium, we are looking at it through the lens of both our things like video bridging and our traditional cloud-based UC offerings, as well as how we improve the experience on the mobile network. We do have access to the OEMs and the devices. We do have access to prioritizing traffic over a data network or a data channel on a mobile device. So we are looking at this and extending what's happening here into, okay, well, how do we take this new capability and improve the experience for the mobile worker? Mm-hmm. I can't speak for AT&T, sure, but I would imagine they're doing a lot of the same.
Is that, Andrew, as on the part of the organization, is it a goal to get those carriers in?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, I mentioned 12 months ago we started with 11 members, of which I think, if I remember rightly, the 11 members, 4 were service providers. Now with our expanded membership of 32, we've got, a large number of additional service providers have joined us. And, what we're seeing, and I think particularly as we launch services in the coming weeks, we'll see a lot more service providers knocking on the door to come and join. Because, again, I think, everybody has the same challenge. You need to move from video being an island, whether the island is within an enterprise or within a service provider, you need to connect those islands. And I think, what we're providing with OVCC is the framework to enable that. And as I say, certainly, we're having a kind of recruitment drive in the Asia-Pac area, so with service providers in that geography, also in Europe particularly. And as I say, we're getting a lot of interest now from, the sort of traditional well-known service providers, but also from managed video service providers. And I think, again, it's like any community. The bigger the community, the more people that you can reach, it gets its own momentum. And as I say, I think we're fairly optimistic that over the next 12 months, the membership will expand quite significantly.
I think just to add to that, I do think one of the things that'll happen when you look at separate, maybe an AT&T or Verizon to some extent, but when you look at the divisions from a mobile perspective, you're talking about people that heritage is really around servicing a consumer device. And you would ask about, the B2C relationship. I think what you'll start to see is as the folks like T-Mobile and Verizon and AT&T and Vodafone and folks like that start looking at, okay, well, how do I increase or improve the experience for my consumers? Well, when you look at their consumers, they're seeing more and more of consumers functioning as prosumers. What I mean by that is they're using the same device. So they don't have separate tablets, they don't have separate smartphones, they're using a single device to perform multiple functions. So they're going to be increasingly interested in how to connect and participate in this type of communication and collaboration. And there's standards that you're seeing in the mobile world, like RCS, stuff like that, that we'll probably end up starting to look at ways that, okay, how do you extend this into some of those consumer-based mobile carrier sort of bodies, if you will.
I think maybe just to add a point to that, one of the things that as a group we were cognizant of was the fact that there are other standards bodies, other organisations and forums that are working in this area, which may be overlapping or duplicating things that we're doing. So we actually set up what we call a liaison committee within OVCC that have reached out to some of these other bodies like GSMA, I3, etc. So we're in discussion with them for two reasons. As I say, one is to make sure that we're not duplicating work that's been done somewhere else, but also to start to look as we move forward to leverage work that's being done in other groups. I mean, often the membership of those other groups is also made up of the same companies. But a lot of the companies are very big and it's different divisions within those companies, so there's coordination needed. But I think certainly, this area of B2C will be something that is developed as well in discussion with some of these other forums that are looking at it. There's a group which is primarily a European-based group at the moment called HDVC. And we had a meeting with them last week to see, how can we make sure as we move forward that the interconnection and the capabilities of these different groups enrich the end user experience and allow us to offer a wider portfolio to the end users. So.
All right, I'd like to open up. If anyone has any questions that you'd like to ask, we'll continue up here, but I want to make sure everybody gets a chance if you want to ask any questions to our panel. Yes, sir. And please speak up.
Yeah.
I think I understood. So first, yeah, we're seeing the same thing.
Maybe
so
just repeat the question.
Yeah, so I think that, and keep me honest here. I think the question was around, the decrease in telepresence, so the sale of telepresence rooms and things like that, due to the increase in soft clients. Is that?
Yeah.
Yep. So we're seeing the same thing. And I think because of the desire to empower the mobile worker, you're seeing basically this desire to start to provide mobile workers things like IM, presence, voice. Video is now coming along with that functionality on those soft clients. So you're seeing, companies that, they've made a lot of investments in, putting TP rooms and stuff like that in a lot of their major, facilities. So now we're starting to see an increase in desktop usage. We're seeing some of the smaller units. And then a huge sort of uplift in mobile clients, that customers looking at. So, yeah, recognize the same trend.
Yes, sir.
From a mobile network, yes. So, one of the considerations is definitely understanding the implications around your data plans, and do you want it to be HD quality to the mobile device and things like that. So there's certainly considerations that need to be, that need to be thought about.
The question was for those who didn't hear it on, do you expect any changes around bandwidth costs? And I mean, to the extent that this drives sort of more mass adoption, what are the implications of that? Clive?
Perhaps I could answer with a little bit more. So I do believe there'll be some tariff changes over a period of time for a very obvious reason. We have one particular customer that has enabled 1,000 desktops with video using soft clients. Pretty big. They're not the average customer, but they saw the value of doing that across the globe. Where the challenges started was the bandwidth in the network, in the enterprise network, in the backbone, all the others. Once the users worked out how powerful it was to have their meetings without leaving their desk or their device and turning all the video on in one go. So this is about a lot of things. Of course, the more the bandwidth goes up over a period of time, if you apply Moore's law logic, the price is going to come down. But if you start enabling everyone in your enterprise to have video in real time, there's some other things that you really do need to plan for. And that's one of the other things that we at the OVCC can help with. This isn't just turn it on and it'll work. People have tried that over the last 20 years and it failed miserably. And you kind of get one shot with the users, don't you? Because if it doesn't work for them, they'll walk away. So there's a lot that goes on around this to make it happen. But absolutely, as the bandwidth requirements go up, I'm absolutely convinced the cost per bit has got to come down. Otherwise, it's not economical.
Yes, sir.
I think the question was, what do you see the success of what we're doing and possible future revenues? Was that the?
How does?
Okay.
How does this?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it obviously depends. The nature of the individual service provider. So if I talk as Orange Business Services, I mean, we've got many different services in the portfolio, of which video is one. I think certainly what we do see, though, over the next 3 to 4 years, and that's a kind of matter of record, is that we see video as a significant area of growth potential. Again, there are certain areas of business that are declining, so legacy business, and we see, this, cloud services, etc., as an area where revenue growth will come from. So, again, that's from a kind of full service provider. I think maybe, Clive from BCS Global, which is more focused on video services, you could answer.
So, if I look at my own business for 1 second, just step out of my OVCC hat for 1 second. We're not unique in the world as BCS. There's numerous other cloud-based video providers around the globe. If you look at all their numbers, we've all had, in the last 2-3 years, outstanding growth. That's, I think, for a number of reasons. One, we've worked out how to deliver a service from the cloud, and the users know and like the experience. I think that will change over a period of time because you can't look at video as an island, and it brings in lots of other applications, and we will certainly be extending our portfolio to cover other areas. But in the last few years, I couldn't be happier with my business and the way that it's grown. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm sitting here today, because the guys at OVCC have the same vision as I. And as a little guy, I can't do it all on my own, and I need these guys to come along and help, which is why I've been so happy to come along and help, but also refreshed by the attitude of the big guys that also see this as a real opportunity.
He's asking, are there any standards? We talked a little about process issues, but are you either endorsing the work of other standards bodies or any of that kind of?
Yeah, so 264 and SIP, and I mean, pretty much we aren't creating any new standards. So when you look at sort of the standards, like you said, E.264 or whatever it is, we're pretty much just a couple things. One, we are building the template or the framework to ensure that folks are adhering to standards. So Andrew mentioned earlier the certification. So when we look at OVCC and we talk about OVCC certified, being certified means that you are adhering to standard operating procedures, standard interfaces, standard protocols that we've all agreed that this is how we would connect. But we're not creating the protocols. We're not redefining a protocol. We're simply saying, hey, here's the one that we believe is the common standard, the one that both has the most present validity as well as into the future as we look at layering on more capability, and then making sure that anybody that is certified is adhering to that.
I'd like to ask, so what can our audience do to help you fulfill your mission? I mean, is it demanding, when some service provider wants to sell you a video service saying, I will not buy it unless it's OVCC compliant, and here's how you prove it to me, and that kind of thing?
I think from my perspective, it's using the service. I mean, obviously, you need to be working with a service provider that is providing an OVCC compliant service. But as I say, I'm quite confident that over the coming months, you'll see more service providers joining and therefore able to offer that compliant service. I think we have a mutual challenge, which is awareness of who is in the community, which leads us to a topic of directories. And it's quite interesting at the moment for the services that we have today. When I go and talk to my enterprise customers and say, look, we've got this service, you need to advertise yourself in the directory so other people can see that you're available. A lot of those customers are very nervous about it, for many different reasons. And I think, what we jointly need to do is to get to a point in time where, if you want to be part of a video community, then, as a customer, you need to contribute something, which is an awareness of the fact that you are part of that community and are reachable through that community. So.
And is there a specific, either initiative specifically, because that does seem like the big issue is directories and sort of everybody knowing how to reach everybody else. Is the goal to have some kind of a DNS for video? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I say, in the first wave of service, the service that we're providing is a scheduled Meet Me service. So each of the service providers will have a directory which it can provide to its customer base of all of the other customers that can be reached through this OVCC compliant service. Okay. What we're looking at, clearly, that's not really a scalable model, ultimately. So what we're looking at and discussing within the OVCC membership is really what's the next generation? Is it some kind of central directory? Do you need a directory at all? Is it like a mobile world, as you said before? All I need to know is somebody's number. I don't need to know what network they're on or what type of device they've got. So, these are the sort of things that we're talking about currently within the OVCC. That as we look at the next sort of generation of services that we're going to be offering, how do you support it with things like directory service, etc.?
Okay. Other questions? Are there, you mentioned, kind of procedures and standard operating procedures. Does that extend to like settlements, intercarrier settlements?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, again, I think, there were a number of things that we said when we set ourselves up. But one thing was, we should be able to leverage existing investments. We didn't, members shouldn't have to go out and buy a lot of new technology to be able to participate in this. The second was that, in order to encourage people to continue to make investment in the infrastructure and in interconnects, etc., you need to be able to make money from it. So, there is a commercial model in place amongst the service providers where there is a settlement structure. So, for example, if we have a meeting where, it's hosted on the Orange Bridge and that meeting is joined by a customer from Verizon, then, we will charge Verizon a fee for participating in that meeting. What Verizon does to its end customer is its responsibility. But amongst the service providers, there is this settlement arrangement to cover basically the costs of the infrastructure. And I think, that the good news about that is that, as I say, is that everybody is signed up to the principle. And I think it's important because, as I say, there is investment needed to make sure that the size of the interconnections, the pipes between the service provider networks are sized so that we don't have, blocking and service issues. And that costs money. So this settlement process and the commercial model that we've put in place, I think, encourages all of the partners and service providers to make those investments.
Is there a need for any sort... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. we don't see like Skype or Citrix GoToMeeting. How do those over-the-top software guys play?
So I think a very simplistic answer. We're a year old. We have 32 members that have come to the party willingly to have these discussions. I think as the OVCC message gets out there, all the application vendors and all the newer vendors will want to come to the party to work out how they talk to those islands at the same time. I have no doubt if we're sitting here again next year having this same conversation, that chart with the logos will change dramatically for those vendors to come to the party. Absolutely. It's just a point in time because their users are the ones that will be forcing them to make all the islands come together. It's no different from the old technology than the new technology. From a user perspective, you don't really care, do you? You just want it to work and communicate. Yes, they'll come to the party.
Okay. All right, and with that, we're pretty much out of time. I want to just ask Andrew to wrap up. If people do want more information about OVCC, what's the website?
Yeah, thanks. So, yes, we've got a website which is www.ovcc.net. And there's a lot of good information on there. So, and certainly if you want more, there is contact information on there that you can go to get more information. But thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.